You know, we talk a lot about bullying here on 640, and we should be talking about it more because it's a plague and bullying on all kinds of levels. Tomorrow, you'll remember this. It's one of those days that are allocated once a year for something, and it's called Pink Shirt Day. So, what's Pink Shirt Day? Well, think a little and you'll remember. It is an annual day that we use to try to highlight bullying, cyberbullying in particular, but bullying generally, and eradicating it. Pink Shirt Day is one single day we should be eradicating bullying every single day, and we don't, and people, notably young people, get hurt. You take a fairly experienced adult, try bullying me, and you'll get back worse than what you tried to give. But I'm not an impressionable young person who lives basically on social media, and and the power, I guess, that can be exerted on one's sense of self worth is extreme. There is a hashtag that they've dreamed up for this hashtag Time's Up on harassment and bullying, and I'm going to use that hashtag, and you should too. And if you're being bullied or you're a distraught parent, very especially, and trying to figure out what to do of someone who is, that hashtag and this segment are actually for you. And I'm very fortunate. I have a guest with me, and his name is Professor Robert T. Muller. He is the author of a newly released book called Trauma and the Struggle to Open Up. You have a famous name too, Professor Muller.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Robert Mueller, the guy who's investigating Russia.
Yeah, right.
But that's not you.
Except it's not me.
Okay,
I'm just I'm very grateful that my name is not Sean Spicer.
Yeah, well, okay, I would buy into that. Let's move on and talk about your area of expertise. However, I know that bullying takes on many forms, and that your expertise is particularly in trauma. And trauma, we hear post-traumatic stress syndrome. We hear trauma as it relates to physical injury, all kinds of trauma. Explain what trauma means in your context.
Well, so when we talk about trauma, we talk about a person who has experienced an overwhelming event, and usually it creates very strong feelings of fear. When we think about trauma in the context of bullying, there is often feelings of isolation, as well as fear, anxiety, that somehow people often feel that they're doing something wrong, that they're somehow the crazy one. They often feel, as I said, isolated, which is very, very difficult, and betrayed. That's a very common experience when people have been bullied, and then they're experiencing traumatic symptoms as a result of it. There's a sense that whether it's their institution, their friend group, their bullying in families, let's say, and other contexts, that they feel that they've been betrayed often by people who one would think you could trust. And so that's actually another area that often is difficulty. People are often left with feelings of mistrust, and it's very difficult.
So the title of your book, Trauma and the Struggle to Open Up, deals precisely with that, the fact that once people have been traumatized, I can use that word,
for sure,
by being bullied, they have to wrestle with these problems of reintegrating with the world, not being afraid of their own shadow, much less anybody else who wants to say or do something that they might be afraid is going to hurt them.
Right, and central to the struggle around trauma is that people who have been through those experiences often don't want to talk about it. They experience what are called avoidance symptoms, where they try to not think about it to avoid dealing with it, and also avoid all the feelings that went along with the traumatic event. And so it's a struggle for people to reach a point where, with someone that they can trust, whether it's a therapist or whether it's a close relationship, a partner, a close friend, find a trusting relationship where they can gradually begin to open up. Because when people do open up after trauma and do feel a sense of validation or empathy from those who are close to them, they do a lot better. Nevertheless, it's scary. It's a scary prospect, and people very often the go-to is to kind of hold it inside and to like I said, to isolate themselves, and so that's one of the struggles, one of the central struggles in helping people get through a traumatic incident.
Okay, well, you and I are having a conversation one to each other, or one to one, but we are talking to an awful lot of people. So I have no doubt
Yeah.
that we're talking to people who either have been on the receiving end of bullying, or very particularly talking to parents whose kids have had trouble like this and are experiencing the after effects or maybe even the current effects of that. What advice would you give to parents who are dealing with either current bullying or kids who have kind of shut down because they are experiencing the traumatic effects of a bullying incident or bullying incidents that have passed?
Well, okay, so it's hard to say, to give one single, piece of it, but there are a couple important principles, and one is to find the person or people that you trust the most in the world. If you are someone who has been bullied, and to test the waters a little bit, and to begin to talk about what happened to you, in the sense that it's very difficult, as I said, to handle the whole thing totally in isolation. If you're a parent who's dealing with a child who's been bullied, well, there's a question of whether you can seek some professional help to be able to assist you in talking with your child. But most important is to start to talk to your child about the event or the events. For kids who feel isolated themselves, when parents can reach out to them and start to kind of listen to them, then that's going to be very, very important. Of course, there are barriers to that, and kids very often feel that they can't talk to their parents,
Right.
and it may very well be the parents themselves who are bullying them. So it's not necessarily, like I said, a one-size-fits-all kind of piece of advice. That's why I say, who are the people in your life who you trust the most in the world? Think about that person.
Okay, so I'm out of
Yeah.
time, and it's unfortunate because I think we could talk easily for an hour or two on this. But I
Yeah.
want to ask you for a quick comment on this, and I recognize that the same thing applies as what you just said. You can't just go instant fix. If somebody listening to us is suffering after effects or current effects of being bullied because of this trust factor, the best thing to do is seek out and engage somebody who you trust more than anybody in the world, and tell them about it and ask for help.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
All right. So, Pink Shirt Day tomorrow. That was Professor Robert T. Muller of York University. He has a book, if you're interested, Trauma and the Struggle to Open Up. And you heard his advice, good advice that it is.